Yeah, I think we're well on. And any approvals will have to go through. As well as. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, what do you think from the food address?
Hey Udo,
As it's written, it is
is your head still this big?
to the left. No, it's shrunk.
It's shrunk a little bit since the chow down.
Oh, and absolutely. I'm willing
It was a good batch of chowder, I'll vouch for that.
Yes, it was.
It's always so interesting when people do something like Long Beach Lodge, like right outside the box.
Totally
Very
different.
cool.
It's a management.
It was a really different bunch of chowders
Yeah.
this time.
Aurora was extremely different too.
Yeah, I think the one Sean got me was from the sous chef. He said it was better if you got it from the regular chef. But I don't know. Some new guy. I don't know. He's not taking the crown yet, though. He's got some work to do.
Okay, welcome everyone. We'll call this March 30th regular Harbour Authority meeting to order at 5 o'clock. The Harbour Authority would like to acknowledge the Ucluelet on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Are there any late items? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the March 30th regular Harbour Authority meeting agenda as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Hoare,
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed, and that carries. Adoption of minutes, December 13th, 2022, Special Harbour Authority minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the December 13th, 2022 Special Harbour Authority minutes as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Kennington,
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed, and that carries. And I'm sorry, I'm so used to calling you councillors. We're actually directors at this meeting, not councillors.
We need
I just caught myself.
backup placards here.
Yeah, that's right. Is there any unfinished business? None? Okay, we have two report items this evening. The first report item is Harbour Improvements. This report is by Director Mafty. Would you like to provide a brief overview of your report, please?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, yes. I'd like to preface this by just addressing 3 points. Number one, I think we're extraordinarily well served in our community. Our harbour facilities are great. I think we're super lucky to have Kevin running a tight ship and a good show. And before I get into the details, I just want to clearly identify and state on the record that I'm not just an interested individual. I'm also a user group. I have a large boat that I moor there that I spend a lot of time on. So a lot of these issues are in my mind a lot because they affect me, but I've brought them forward because I suspect that they're not of interest solely to me as an individual, but to similar users. So in a nutshell, I, over the year and a half that I've been down there, had a number of conversations with Kevin about, things that I see and issues that have come up. And I've brought a number of them forward today for us to discuss as a group, not because I necessarily think that there's a way to move forward on all of them, but because I felt that it would be useful to have a discussion as a group. So Kevin has discussed all of these issues with me, sometimes multiple times, and explained what the challenges are and what the opportunities opportunities might be, and in some cases there might not be an easy solution. But I felt that it would behoove us to at least have the discussion out in the open and see if there might be opportunities to at least discuss some of the issues. So you all have the report. If everyone's read it and there's not a need to run through it again, I'd suggest that maybe we would just refer to Mr. Courts, who could give us his feedback on those items and his perspective, and basically reiterate what he's told me before.
Perhaps we'll just start to see if any of the Harbour Authority directors have any questions about this report. No, I am also a user of the Harbour, and I thought these were really well thought out items that would be lovely to see, if possible. Ms. Fortune or Mr. Courts, do you have any input on these requests? Ms. Fortune? Yeah.
Does that work? There we
Yes.
go. Through the chair, I'm just wondering if you would prefer to go with recommendations for a full report, or if there's areas that you would like to discuss, and then we can bring back further information for a report as well.
Okay, we can just go straight to that motion if you prefer.
Sorry, I'm as I'm hearing it, just a quick discussion on them is what's being asked from the chair. So unless there's a directive that wants to go straight to bringing them all back, but if you want to speak to them first, I think that's what the request is.
Okay, I'll speak as much as I can to them as they are stated. The first one, which is the full-on water supply issue, the water lines that we have are exposed, so they're exposed water lines. So what I ended up doing, I sent out to the form, the HAABC, to see what other harbors are doing. What's coming back to me more than often, is a bleeder valve. So bleeder valve would sit at the low end of the docks, so I would probably need for the whole docks a dozen of them. But the only thing with bleeder valves, of course, when it freezes, it's going to release water. So the water will be constantly going at a low rate, but still going. That's the only way I can get around shutting off and draining. The reason of the cracking is I shut off and drain, and then someone else will come along and turn water back on, and then it just freezes in the line and pops things off as it defrosts. If you guys would like to do that, we'll put it in reports and figure out what the water usage would be out of the bleeder valves. So that's what I would suggest for the first one. Installation of power on 52 steps. For you guys to do that, I would suggest, and these are just my suggestions, of course, you would need to get an estimate of what that cost is going to be, from 3-phase to how much power do you want down there. Do you want 30 amp? Do you want 50 amp? All the rest of that stuff. Put that together, and then you would have to present that to DFO. Since the asset, it belongs to DFO, they would need to approve, either they'd fund it, or if you guys were looking to fund it, if they would even allow that to happen on their docks. So that's be something to push forward with. The restructure of the reserve spaces. That's your guys' decision. You guys create policy. I enforce your policy. So if you're looking at restructuring it, you'd have to figure out how you want that done. Once again, that's something that Abby and I can go in a report and give you a few options of what that actually would look like and see if that's viable. Determination of allocation of users. I think that 3 and 4 kind of roll together, and I think we can put that together. I don't really need to speak to that, I don't think. And the policy and procedures. Presently, there are, for vessels that are in arrears, there's a warehouse lien act. So if there's anything of any, I feel that someone is not going to be paying, I can go through the warehouse lien act, which Legal Law in Victoria has developed for the HABC, and we can use their procedure to do that. So seizing a vessel and auctioning a vessel, and whatever's left over goes to the owner. Most cases, there's nothing left after you've sold their boat. And the upgrade of the washrooms, once again, that'll be your guys' decision. How do you want to work with budgetary and funding? Abby and I can get together and figure out how you want that, or options of how you want it actually restructured or reconstructed. So if there's any questions to any of that stuff,
Just one, do we have any derelict vessels currently tied up to our docks?
The last derelict vessel was the Tromso, and we've removed. I have vessels that people are working on. I have vessels that, if they don't be looked after, will become derelict, yes. So that's for something for me to be discussing with the owners that are there. I have a few on F dock, one major one on F dock that's a question mark for me. I have a couple vessels that are in arrears, and I'm working with one of the owners. She's fallen on some hard times. She's selling her boat. I'm trying to make that work for her. And then the other one we can discuss.
Thank you. Any questions from directors?
I have one.
Councillor Hoare? Sorry, Director Hoare.
Thinking about the water and the bleeder valve option, are we metered on water down at the harbor?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Okay. I see. If there's no other questions, there is a series of recommendations. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move that the Harbour Authority direct staff to investigate and provide a report back to the Harbour Authority on the following topics. Should I read them all out, or does that? Yeah, my chickens have come home to roost. Number 1, installation of water lines to allow for year-round supply of water. Number 2, installation of power at 52 steps. Number 3, prioritization of annual moorage users. Number 4, dock space allocation prioritization for seasonal users and related fee structure. Number 5, moorage/enforcement policies and priorities with respect to derelict vessels. And 6, washroom, laundry, and shower facility upgrades and access options.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Hoare. Any further discussion?
Through the chair, if I could raise one point, discussing this agenda and some of these items with Mr. Courts beforehand, he suggested that an option that we would consider is to bring some of these issues in a committee of the whole to the general public to solicit feedback, just so that we're not making decisions in a bit of a vacuum, get some more input. I don't know if that's appropriate or desirable. Again, I just want to couch all of this by saying that I'm reluctant to project my own vision of what I'd like to see as a user, because at the end of the day, I'm not here in that capacity. So I just want to make sure that if there's a way to get more input, that might be beneficial, and that we explore it.
Mr. Lawrence?
Thank you, Chair. The Harbour Authority is a slightly different entity than a council, so there isn't technically a committee of the whole. It's just the Harbour Authority. So what we can do, and what I would recommend, is that we'll do a report, we'll investigate options, we'll look at impacts, see what the appetite for the various options and possibilities are, do some cost implications, just keep it fairly high level at this point in time. And then once council has an idea of what that actually looks at like, and what the consequences and unanticipated consequences of any actions or impacts to any other users of the space may be, then council can direct the staff to do further engagement if it's a priority item, or proceed or abandon based on what the Harbour Authority feels is an appropriate action. But I think going out for input at this stage, we're not quite there yet, because we don't know if it's actionable items that the Harbour Authority would like to pursue.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed, and that carries. The next report item is 8.2, Sublease Barclay Sound Adventure Centre. This report will be presented by the Director of Recreation. After Ms. Fortune presents, the business owner, Mr. Lurch, will have an opportunity to address the Harbour Authority. Ms. Fortune.
Yeah, good? Yeah, sorry, my apologies. Through the chair, I'm going to do my best to explain this to you, and so please do feel free to ask questions. Before you, you have a number of recommendations and steps, which I will try and explain. So currently, we don't have a head lease with DFO. We are 1 year out of, so we not lost, our head lease ran out in January of 2022. So DFO is going through the process of creating new head leases. And we are kind of at the bottom of their list. They've got like over 22 head leases that they have not dealt with yet, and ours was just lost. Most of them are from 2019, so they're a little bit behind the 8 ball. But we're still going month to month for the head lease that we off our current status. So that's what we're waiting for. But the Smallcraft Harbour DFO wants to create a new sublease for Barkley Sound Adventure Station, Inc. And so there's some timing on this, and which will eventually go to our head lease of expiring of 2027. So they're still on that timeline because our head lease finished in 2022. So it's a 5-year head lease, and that's what will kick into play. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Yay. So in front of you, you've got an appendix that outlines Barkley Sound Adventure Station. That's Appendix 1 on page 9, I believe. Yes, on page 9, that has all the business information. And with the new subleases, so we're the guinea pig for the subleases, so they have not created these subleases before. So they're very similar to what was there before, but they've had some tweaks. And one of the tweaks is the Harbour Authority must approve the business to operate in order to get the sublease. So the information before you in Appendix A is the information that is required from Smallcraft Harbour, DFO Smallcraft Harbour. I'll get the order correct. All right, and then what you see attached in Appendix B is the actual DFO Smallcraft Harbour sublease. So it's a bit of a fill in the blank to a point, and that's what they supplied us with in order to move this forward, and that's for the sublease. And they do want to get the sublease going as soon as possible. Okay, so does that make sense in terms of what you have before you?
I believe so. Any questions from Harbour Authority?
Okay, so before you, you have recommendations, and one of the things that is required, so if approved, you'll make a recommendation to approve the Barkley Sound Adventure Station, Inc. to operate the float house and patio and grill. And then if that's something that Harbour Authority chooses to agree with, then a letter will go to DFO as a part of the package for the sublease. And then the DFO Smallcraft Harbour will do a final on that, and then it will come back to council to sign off on the sublease. Clear as mud?
Makes sense.
So you have recommendations before you, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Director Hoare.
Quick question, because you've referenced it as Barkley Sound Adventure Station, Inc.
Yes.
But these say Barkley Sound Adventure Center, Inc.
Oh, sorry.
And there's throughout the document, there's a couple places where it's BSAC or BSAS, and I just want to make sure we have the correct wording for the resolution.
I believe in we've been going back and forth, and that's my apologies. I believe it is Barkley Sound Adventure Center, Inc. Udo, correct? Yes. Okay. So if I've missed those, my apologies. We were going back and forth a little bit.
All good. The resolutions are correct then. It's just there's stuff in, I can't remember if it's actually in the sublease where I
will
noticed it, but
I'll
check it.
double check the sublease. Thank you for that. I thought we caught them all, but there's a good chance we didn't.
It may just be the abbreviations too that are
Off.
yeah.
I'll double check those. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Fortune? Mr. Lurch, do you have anything you'd like to speak to us about?
I can't think of anything. I'm just here to see what the process is all about. Just a little frustrated in the timing, but everything has to follow in due process, and I do understand that. It's just for me. It's just information as to how things are progressing with Small Craft Harbor, and it's just more of an information session for me.
Right. And will this impact when you are allowed to open for the season?
No.
That has more to do with the piling replacement, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Just in past, in the past, because of chief financial officer I had to deal with, for years we couldn't get a legal lease agreement. So we actually went, I think, 7 years without a legal lease, but the previous lease always stated that a district can add 5% per year, and that's what we operated on. And, you know, I understand there's a lot of things to work on the lease, but for me, it's just frustrating. Between 2016 and 2019, I was waiting 3 years for a lease, and finally Mark Boysen got me the lease agreement. I understand now that the district is working on the lease agreement for the harbor, so I can understand there is a time delay, but eventually I'd like to have a lease agreement, so I know I can stay put for quite a few more years. That's all. Thank you.
That makes sense. Thank you for the comments. I see there are several recommendations. Would the Harbour Authority like to make those recommendations?
Everybody looks at me.
You've got the voice for it, Jen.
Director
I'm
Hoare?
just used to reading aloud. All right, I will move that the Harbour Authority approve the Barkley Sound Adventure Center, Inc. to operate the Float House Patio and Grill and Adventure Center within the Ucluelet Inner Boat Basin at 200 Hemlock Street, Ucluelet, British Columbia. I think we should probably do these separately for, yeah.
Second that one then.
Director Kennington seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed, and that carries.
I will move that the Harbour Authority approve the sublease as presented in the March 30th, 2023 report to the Harbour Authority between the District of Ucluelet and the Barkley Sound Adventure Center, Inc. for the operation of the Float House Restaurant and Adventure Center in a sublease amount of $15,445 for 2023 plus GST, excluding utilities, with an annual increase of 5% for the term of 4 years commencing January 4th, 2023 through January 3rd, 2027, totaling $66,569 plus GST.
I'll second.
Director Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed, that carries.
I will move that the Harbour Authority authorize staff to issue a letter to Department of Fisheries and Oceans Small Craft Harbor indicating the Harbour Authority approval of the Barkley Sound Adventure Center, Inc. business operations within the Ucluelet Inner Boat Basin and support the execution of a sublease between District of Ucluelet and the Barkley Sound Adventure Center, Inc.
Second.
Director Kennington seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed, that carries.
And I will move that the Harbour Authority recommend to Council the execution of a sublease between the District of Ucluelet, there's a missing word there, and Barkley Sound Adventure Center, Inc. for the operation of the Float House Patio and Grill and Adventure Center upon final sublease approval from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Small Craft Harbor.
I'll second.
Director Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed, and that carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fortune. And thank you, Director Hoare, for doing those wordy resolutions.
We should thank my mom for teaching me to read aloud a lot.
Are there any notices of motion? Nope. There are two information items. 10.1 Harbour Manager Report. Mr. Courts, would you please present your Harbour Manager Report?
Okay, since our last meeting, That good? Okay. Since our last meeting, of course, the big event was the fire on January 5th. The vessel is still sitting at the bottom of the bay, which we had flagged about a week ago. I had a diver down, and I've got flotation now to indicate where it is. It's on a zero tide. She's sitting about 11 feet, so any vessel with a deeper keel than that may touch it. So just for our own protection, we decided to make sure that it was very visible. Right now, the process, to my knowledge, is between DFO Legal and insurance company for the vessel owner. So I'm a little, for a timeline to fixing the dock, I'm not really sure where we're going to sit at that. My priority is to get that boat up and out of there before it causes potentially something else. They've installed an electrical charging station in front of the float house. So that was installed early February. Yeah, early February. It's been used a little bit. I think my biggest issue will be trying to managing to keep people from parking there and then leaving for months in that space. So I probably have to do a little bit more for signage. Speaking of signage, we're going to put the aquarium signage should be up by end of next week. I've got all my timbers and stuff ready to go. Commercially, we're starting to roll. There should be a Area G salmon opening for Barclays Sound. Is tentatively started on a Saturday, as well as the lingcod fishery. So I've had a few lingcod boats arriving. They'll do live lingcod. We'll have a few deliveries, probably like we normally have on the whiskey dock. They tote them up the ramp, and Hub City is the collector. We've had a few gooey deck deliveries as well on the Main Street dock. That's pretty much my... Oh, I do have an issue, and I've indicated it both to Abby and DFO now that we're kind of figuring out who owns the tree. There's a uprooted tree that I have a little concern about at 52 Steps. It's in the report, we need to work on getting someone who has the knowledge to see if it's going to stand or not. So.
Thank you. Is that uprooted tree near the ramp?
It's near the stairs, and I shouldn't say uprooted. The roots are now all visible. On the tree. So my concern, it's probably standing 160, 170 foot tall tree. It's a hemlock growing out of an old rotten piece of cedar. And because there's houses below as well as the stairs and stuff, I just want to make sure an arborist comes and tells me that tree's okay, because I'm looking at it going, but I don't know.
And is that district property?
I believe so. So, it came to light when I believed it was DFO's because of the stairs. They sent back their foreshore, and their foreshore stops kind of at where our lift station is, at the bottom of 52 Steps, at the septic lift station. Everything above that, I do believe, the stairs included, is district property.
Ms. Fortune?
Yes, through the chair. And Kevin is correct. That is the case. So what we've done is we've contacted one of our danger tree assessment, and Dave will be looking at it shortly. He was just, with all the damage from the snowstorm, he's a little bit behind, but it is on his list to follow up on.
Great, thank you. And the aquarium sign, that's going at the fish cleaning station?
So there's two signs. One will be on the north side, one will be on the south side as you go into the station.
And have you seen them? Do we know what's on them?
Yes, we have the signs. I should have brought pictures. Sorry, my mistake. But yeah, we do have two of the signs that were agreed upon, and Shram Design has designed them for us. So.
I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the Harbour Authority? I have one. It's on your report. It says we had 5 deliveries of commercial ghost gear. The deliveries consisted of 8 crab traps and 36 prawn traps. Who delivered them to you?
So they have collectors. So there's a few companies that do it. Rugged Coast, Coastal Restorations, and GPO, Dane Stubble. Dane's a local one who's done the Harbour. Most of my collection has come from a Pitsit, a Howsit, and that was Coastal Restorations. I've had contact through the DFO Ghost Gear Collections. 2 of the owners have contacted me about recollecting. After 30 days, they have a limit, and then I get a hold of the collector, Coastal Restorations or Rugged, to remove it if the owner doesn't come and collect.
And do you know what they do with it from there?
It'll be a recycling program. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think that's all our questions. Thank you, Mr. Courts. Uh, 10.2 Harbour Authority Resolution Tracking. Are there any questions or comments about the resolution tracker from the Harbour Authority? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the public to ask questions and provide comments on items on today's agenda. Items not related to today's agenda will not be heard. Are there any questions from the audience? An audience of one. Mr. Rotenberg, are there any questions by Zoom or by telephone?
We do not have any attendees via Zoom or telephone.
And have we received any questions via email, communityinput@ucluelet.ca?
Not at this time.
All right, the March 30th, 2023 Harbour Authority meeting is adjourned at 5:29. Thank you.